We are in.
Okay, so very much welcome to all. This is a working group for more balanced geographical representation of accredited NGOs, and this is the NGOs under the 2003 convention. My name is Matti Hakamäki. I'm from the Finnish Folk Music Institute, and we have been dealing with this initiative for about a half a year now. Actually, last time, or first time it was mentioned in Bogota that maybe there should be a working group for this important matter. And then we had an survey in the autumn time, in the summertime about this matter, and then we got some ideas behind the working group, and also get some stakeholders who would be interested in participating this important work. And now we are here in the first, in a way, official working group meeting, open meeting, even though this working group is not official yet, since we have not made the petition for the 5 NGOs, but I think that won't be a problem. We will go on with that. And we also had a preparatory meeting with some of the stakeholders or the NGOs who were interested in participating this important work. So we had this preparatory meeting just last week, and also discussed something of the agenda that we are going to be talking about today. So this is the background. I will be sharing you some slides and try very briefly to introduce the subject, and then we will go on with the agenda. We have three presentations from different regions, which is kind of the idea today, that we really hear the voices from different regions. This is very essentially with this working group. So warmly welcome to all of you. We won't have a presentation round because we are so many, and we have only about an hour to go. But there will be a discussion in the up to half an hour. So please present yourself also, and keep your videos so that we can see your faces. We can't see you face to face or meet you face to face now because of the COVID. So it's very important also. It would be very nice to see you through the video at least. And then the microphone's off, and if you have something to say, you can use the chat, or you can wave your hand or use the raise hand function. We will try to see the chat also, so that we will react to those. So to go with the basic things, geographical imbalance. This is something that has been mentioned, I think, for years and years with the convention, and I will be very brief. I talked about the new working group and the ideas behind that. So just some key questions. Actually, what we were talking also in the preparatory meeting was that in the beginning, it would be very nice to get an idea what we are kind of talking about. What is an NGO? How NGOs are regarded? How NGOs are thought of? What are their relations in the societies in different regions? Because this varies a lot. And so there's some background information. Maybe Marit, if you can send the links to the chat, if it's possible, or then I will do it later, or you can find the links in other documents. But there has been some background papers produced also where the same information is available. But so the non-governmental organizations in the United Nations, it's a term that means that it's not a governmental organization. And with many conventions and many activities, NGOs are given observer status. and civil societies, what they what we represent, and of course we have this broker role. And then the actual matter, the imbalance, we have now the accredited NGOs. It has been going from, this first slide is from 2012. We see that the group 1, which is Europe and North America, and as Laureate has said, that especially Europe, that we have a very strong representation from European countries in the NGOs accredited. And then you can see the situation from 18 and then 20. This is not the newest, so we don't have the new accredited NGOs here, but we can see the overall picture that we have a strong problem with the balance of these accredited NGOs. And the idea, like the basic idea behind this all, is that when you work on an international level like United Nations, and you have a cooperation, what is actually the deal, then it is very, very important that all the regions, every country's voices are heard. And this is kind of the idea of United Nations and this international cooperation. And of course, this convention is actualized in this framework, in this international cooperation framework. So it is very important also for this convention to have this kind of a diverse, democratic and very balanced, regionally balanced representation. And then especially with our convention, with the ICH convention, since the communities and the NGOs play a very, very big part in the implementation of the convention, in the ideas and philosophies of the convention, I think it's even more important with this convention that we are taking this balance or imbalance more seriously. So, and this, if we have kind of this problem or this imbalance fixed in the future, which we say 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, it's not a very easy task to do. But I'm very sure that this will give this convention more power in the societies of the countries in the world. So this is a very crucial thing, and this is something that has, of course, been said in many times before. Here I just maybe if we have it on the video, to have it in the so you can check afterwards, but it's been mentioned in many times that NGO Forum, the state parties, all the stakeholders of the convention should be active with this matter. And this is now what we are doing with the ICH NGO Forum, kind of trying this working group method. Would this be a one to react to this situation? We had the survey in the autumn time, and we had kind of two questions in the survey. One was how to reach out to relevant NGOs in the underrepresented regions of the world. And here are the kind of the results of the survey, what activities could be done. And I won't go them through individually, just to say that there could be many things done amongst the capacity building, mainly about the capacity building and the awareness raising of this matter. And then also this another, just a minute. Yeah. And then another question was to suggest ICH NGOs and the ICH experts belonging to the underrepresented parts of the world. And this is just the ideas how to actually reach out to the NGOs that we would like to see more in the convention. Okay, so this was kind of the here I stop the share. The background for the meeting, and then please, Janet Blake, I ask you to talk briefly about this situation in your region, in your country, your ideas. How are the NGOs recorded in your reality, in your NGOs actuality? Please, Janet.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not sure. Can you actually see my screen yet?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, good, great. That's amazing. I should start, as a good lawyer always does, with a disclaimer, which is the fact that, first of all, as you know, the time was quite short to put this together. So a lot of it just reflects my own personal take on the situation. And I feel hugely embarrassed to be speaking on behalf of West and Central Asia when I see Gulnar is here for a start. So please do add your own take on it. And also I see we have, is it Sona from one of the Turkish NGOs too? So this is, as I say, to some degree a personal take, but I hope it can be useful. First of all, I did just gather from the website of the accredited NGOs from the UNESCO website, a list. So you see that, for a region that's a pretty big sub-region, I should say, Western and Central Asia, yes, we have a number of countries represented, which is good, but a number of them also, it's by one NGO or two NGOs, not more, which is less encouraging. And I just take the example from Iran, where I'm based. We are newly accredited, and there was one NGO previously accredited that has disappeared from the list, and I'm kind of looking into the reasons why that is. And I suspect that some of those may actually be to do with a degree of obstruction, let's say local obstruction, which is something we may experience in the future. But we already have experienced it just trying to get accredited, to be honest. And I should mention there are 206 NGOs on the list of the Ministry of Cultural Heritage. So that does really beg a big question. Why so many NGOs on that list and so few make it through to accreditation and thinking about accreditation. And I just present a few thoughts I had as to some of the reasons why. A large number of these reasons are not ones that the NGO Forum can directly address, but I think it's useful to be aware of them, one, and also to think about those where we can maybe strategically respond. So in our region, yeah, there are a few countries with internal security challenges where, frankly, just operating as an NGO is in itself is very, very difficult on the ground. And to start considering international engagement in such a situation is really tough. There are, of course, some relatively newly, I've lost a word here, whoops. I tried to just show you, I should have the word newly here. I mean, relatively newly, states that have been independent for, 30 years or so, that still maybe some of the political structures and culture that you need for NGOs to flourish might not yet be present. In a number of countries of the region, governments are suspicious of NGOs as a kind of potential fifth column, working for outside interests. And I should say that, this isn't a completely misplaced suspicion. It's our experience that NGOs have been used by outside actors to try to intervene in different ways. But it is definitely a challenge for those organizations seeking to work on the ground, and particularly those looking to engage internationally. As we know, there are many different actors and competing interests, and including governmental bodies in the field of ICH. And I think that this becomes a particularly crucial point where you have serious budget limitations, because then you have a real scramble for those resources available. And there's a strong move, I think, even from the governmental bodies to try to squeeze out the NGO sector to be able to kind of encroach on this territory itself. There is often a lack of good channels of communication between NGOs and governmental bodies, which is another obstacle. And our own regional speciality, GNGOs. as in governmental, non-governmental organizations, which is yet another challenge. I mean, if you look at the NGOs accredited to the Human Rights Council, you can see a number of them have clearly been government created to have a sort of presence, a controlled presence. So interesting, actually, the list under politics is the longest list, I should mention. But there are kind of legal issues too. I don't know how true this is throughout our region, but it's certainly true for us, which is that there isn't actually under law a clear or appropriate legal status for NGOs. So, for example, we are actually established as a limited company. And I'm the managing director of the board of a company, because that is the only available form of legal status. And of course, this can create problems. If it's very hard to have a legal status, it's also very hard to do a lot of the, other legal actions necessary as an NGO. But it can also just affect you in terms of your status. You're not necessarily regarded as being truly an NGO. And it certainly can be a challenge with regard to accreditation, because if you don't have a legal status that is clearly understood as NGO, it's hard to describe yourself as such. Although I notice that in the application form, it doesn't require you to show that. But I think it's definitely a kind of unwritten obstacle if you don't have it. Clearly, financial issues are very important. And it not just makes it difficult to work locally, because I mean, we, for example, have found that we've got very close in many occasions, to setting up a project with various partners, governmental, otherwise, but then the budget issue kicks in and we haven't been able one way or the other to get the project signed off on. But it's also a very big issue for international engagement. I mean, I should mention from my own side that currently an air ticket to Europe is equivalent to 1.5 months of my salary as a university professor because of sanctions. So, I mean, I'm lucky I have other income that's not just dependent on my university, but it does show you what the challenge is. And so high inflation and, in our case, sanctions regimes, etc., really is an issue. Also, where there isn't high political trust, it does make it very difficult for NGOs to work with foreign partners who might be the obvious source of funding otherwise. Overseas aid, development funding. And even, for example, in the US, in Iran, it's very hard for us to work directly with UN agencies too. If you look at our UNDAF, it's not really something made possible. We have to kind of do it indirectly through another partner, whether it's a scientific institution or a governmental body, whatever. And usually we'd have to partner with a governmental body just to protect ourselves. And this lack of legal status, as I say, has clear financial implications. It can make entering into contracts difficult. It can even make establishing a bank account difficult and receiving funds difficult. I think also, though, there are a number of sociocultural factors at play as well. Bearer communities at times have suspicion with regard to NGOs. And I mean, this is actually interestingly, I came across this case with regard to Afghanistan, where there's actually quite a lot of engagement with international donors, but there's also been quite a lot of resistance from some bearer communities who have the sense that it's these outsiders coming in and telling us how to do things. So there's obviously an issue also there that has to be taken into account. Also, in our region, I think it's fair to say that a lot of the NGOs that are currently active in the field of ICH are kind of on the type of scientific institutes, or let's say, society of ethnologists, anthropologists, etc., which is great. But I should mention also there tends to be a rather old-fashioned view in these scientific disciplines in many countries, where it's very top-down. Bearers are seen very much as passive interviewees. And so these NGOs don't necessarily regard the convention as speaking to them. because I've had experience of capacity building in a number of regional countries, and I keep coming up against this, you know, especially the community-based inventory one, being told, you know, what the communities tell us this about their element, it's wrong. And why should we listen to the communities? So, you know, it does mean that some of the lack of desire to engage internationally may even come back to a resistance in certain areas of the NGO community to the idea of the convention itself. So I think that that's definitely one area where raising awareness is absolutely key. But also I think there are a lot of traditional forms of social organization in Western Asia. I can't speak for Central Asia very well, I'm sorry. You know, which are actually kind of like NGOs in the field of ICH are doing that job, but they wouldn't necessarily consider themselves to be NGOs. I mean, it's a little bit like, you know, the number of times I've heard incredibly powerful, active women in Iran, you know, in the particularly governmental side saying, oh, I'm not a feminist. But everything they do, how they act, how they live, for me, is truly feminist. In other words, it's also about the notion of NGO being an external notion and something a little bit to be suspicious of. So if you don't regard yourself as an NGO, you're not going to consider becoming accredited to the forum. And obviously, this is where perhaps we can more directly engage, is this question of either lack of capacities or lack of generally confidence. So there is still quite an information gap about ICH and about the 2003 convention. And as I say, there are a lot of community-based organizations that probably from our point of view would be very welcome as accredited NGOs, but it wouldn't just occur to them to see themselves as such. Obviously, in many cases, the lack of capacities to operate internationally, whether that be because of language, lack of experience, etc. And we all know about the anthropological writings, you know, this idea that there's kind of a form of indoctrination is too strong a word, but you know, that if you then go into the area of building capacity in NGOs to engage internationally, you're starting to impose a discourse. And it's a very difficult area, this, because obviously it's an obstacle, but an obstacle that when you try to deal with the obstacle, you may create other problems. I think there also is just, you know, a lack of confidence operating in the international arena. And again, I think we should bear in mind that there are a lot of countries in our region where there's a kind of mindset as well, where everything foreign, and by foreign we mean Western, is somehow better. You know, it drives me crazy in Iran, the number of times that Iranians working in pretty second-rate institutions in Europe get invited to speak in international conferences and lauded because they got a job in a European university or a North American one. But what they have to say is no more interesting than what people here have to say. But there is this mindset. And I think, and that, when you put that together with the idea of being an NGO itself being a foreign concept, it really is quite a psychological challenge. And as I say, lastly, it's a very basic point, but it actually is quite important. Poor internet connectivity, as I mentioned for me yesterday and almost today, you know, this is a big issue. And, you know, in Iran, again, I bring the case of Iran, when we have the political crises that we seem to have fairly regularly, whether it be the assassination of members of our scientific community or whatever, you know, then our internet gets slowed down to crawling speed. So, you know, this is a problem. And even good flight connections. When I did a training in Turkmenistan, I had to fly 2.5 hours, 3 hours to Istanbul, and then a 5-hour flight from Istanbul to go to somewhere that if you stand on a hill in Ashgabat, you can look down and see Iran. But it was the only way I could get there. I couldn't even do the land route. So you know, there are some countries in our region that are actually quite badly served with regard to connections. And it can sometimes be easier to get a European expert than it is to get a regional expert as well. So these kind of practicalities too. As I say, you know, big disclaimer, this is very much a personal sort of anecdotal response to the question. And we do have people from regional countries here who may want to correct me on something or add something to what I have to say. So I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. That was very, very interesting. Very. I think you put it the basic things very, very clearly. I think this is exactly what we needed here, to have a kind of like a overall picture. I think these your points are valid in many regions. Of course, maybe we have something to add also, but I think this is kind of the basic structure and basic problem that we are now starting to deal with. Next, if Jorge, Gustavo, is it okay if we change so that we have the Marusia and Allen next, because they are of course representing the ABE NGO, and they are just newly accredited from Mauritius, and it's very nice that you have promised to see your point, to give your point here, and maybe we will hear more like a practical experience from your side, since I think Janet very nicely put the overall structure of the project. But please, Marusia and Alain from ABE.
Thank you, Matti, and hello everybody. We are very happy to meet you. So we are from Mauritius in the Indian Ocean, as Matti said, just newly accredited, and we are the only NGO accredited in Mauritius, and maybe in the Indian Ocean. If I have checked well, there are not more than 2 or 3 NGOs. So it's very little for this area, which is, as you would know, very traditionally very rich in ICH. So to continue on to what Janet was explaining, I will say that we don't have the same difficult situation as for Iran. In Mauritius, NGOs have a legal status and is well regarded, maybe from the government side and also from the population. We have been, the NGO things have been new, let's say, for the last 10 years. It was, before it was the association, we were known as an association. So we register with the registrar of association. But since the last 10 years, it's we are now known as a non-governmental organization. And I'll say that one of the things that I think makes it difficult for Mauritian people, for Mauritian NGOs to register, is the lack of communication. I'm talking from the Abin's side part of Abin's opinion. We only knew of this accreditation and the UNESCO rules from the visit of experts to the NGO. So even if United Nations is well established, they've got officers in Mauritius, and all the other officers from the United Nations, UNDP, and etc. I would say that the communication is not as aggressive maybe as it could have been, to let us know about all the possibilities to join other NGOs of the different conventions that existed. So one is the lack of information, the awareness. We were not aware, and if it was not for the visit of experts to our center, we would have never known about this thing, and we would not have been with you. So let Alain continue on what we think are the difficulties in the region.
Hello, everybody. Just a few additional comments. We do concur that underrepresentation is a real democratic problem because the world is not properly represented. And we are really sensitive to this aspect itself, even though we are newly accredited. The second part of it is that when you don't have this representation of the world adequately, there is surely that denial of diversity. The world is supposed to be represented as one, and this oneness is really lacking because of lack of diversity. And it has to do in countries like Mauritius, in tiny countries like Mauritius, with the issues of language which are not officially recognized, for example, as medium in education in our country. So we would really like to see more of diversity, and this has to do, of course, with the better representation of NGOs. I'd like just to mention that we form part of the Southwest Indian Ocean, but Mauritius is an African country as well. And of course, as a matter of fact, Africa is not that well represented at all. And in view of the richness of ICH, of the whole continent, we are all for a better representation of the African continent. But then we do have, as Maria mentioned, big issues as to awareness about the convention itself and about what the states, what about the state's involvement in disseminating this convention. So as an NGO forum, maybe it would be good if we can get that idea to the UN, telling them that the state parties need to sensitize the population better in order that they can participate as NGOs or in any forms that can be discussed and agreed upon. Because in some countries, in some regions, the very idea of NGOs appear to be somehow problematic. So these are the first comments that we would like to share with you, and we hope that we can together find ways and means of correcting this imbalance in terms of the voices of the population through their representatives, and in particular through NGOs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alain and Mauricia. This was very good information for us, and I'm very happy that you gave this your point of view as a newly accredited NGO, and from a kind of from the grassroots level. I know that you are hurrying up to a concert. I know you're a great work with the communities that you do. So have a good luck with the concert activities of today.
Thank you, and apologies we can't stay with you for the rest of the discussion.
This is okay. Thank you for having the time for this. And then Jorge, we have a question from Hannah, but we will take it after we have had the presentations here. And then actually one thing I would like to say, if possible, could you change your name to have your name in the have your kind of correct name so that we are knowing who's present. And then also if you are willing to join this working group, or your NGO, or you are willing to join this working group, please put your name and email to the chat, so that you will be in the email list, which will be circulating amongst the the people who are active with this. Okay, so Jorge, please.
Yes, hello to everybody. So the first problem of imbalance is the time zone. So it was 5:30 for me in the morning. So
And what's the time there?
Yes. So I really agree with what Janet mentioned. It was a very nice presentation. I think she covered many of the subjects. I will go as her with a disclosure. I'm not talking for my NGO, neither for the steering committee, but just for myself. I'm just participating here with my experience on the field, and I will try to share it with you as someone from the Latin America region. Let me show you the region. So that is Latin America, not the Caribbean. Just wanted to show you everything you see in red was basically dictatorships during the 70s. And this is my region. And Mexico, we had a democratic dictatorship. So very nice, very different way of putting it, but we have it. We have one party in the power for more than 70 years, and that's it. So so understanding this is very important, because as Janet mentioned, everything is politics, and we come with a background of understanding and different histories on why NGOs form in each country. No, in the case of Mexico, this was the only way to get an active participation in politics, not being in politics, but then again being in social life. And it was encouraged at the time, and it was very notorious and very, how you say, very, it has a good reputation to be an NGO at the beginning. What we're seeing now in 2020 is communities has NGO fatigue. So they don't want to have more NGOs. They don't want anthropologists. There is a lot of problems in the communities surrounding governments. Governments, they want to keep, voters. In modern democracy, I think we have we're addict to the votes. So it's like a junkie state. And so in that sense, governments are always building upon how to create a certain adherence from the voters and the communities. And in that sense, they give a lot of money. And to give the money and to make sure that the money gets to the people and everything, they do all these programs, social programs, not necessarily good programs, just social programs to get the votes for them. And in that sense, I just was with one of the communities we work with. They do musical instruments in the center of Mexico. And I was talking to one of the artisans, and he told me, we're really, really annoyed because, I mean, this year we have had 15 visits from all the different levels of the local government, then the federal government, then the universities, and they don't leave us to work. So it's really annoying, because they're always coming to us and asking what we need. And I say, just leave us alone. That's what we need. No, it was very interesting, because of course, when I grew up, it was very different, and it was very nice traveling to towns and meeting people and everything, engaging with the process. So I think that's one thing to take in consideration. How are we really empowering people to participate? And the question is, do they really want to participate in that sense, and how can we really benefit? And that comes to the next thing. What's in it for the NGOs, no? Because I also agree with the point of view of Janet. She's mentioning not everybody is equipped to participate in the international field, because you have to have the language first of all, and then you have to have the knowledge of how to work within. It was very interesting because in the process that we enter here as NGOs, in the convention, this convention is very exceptional, because as you all know, United Nations is a club of nations. It's not meant for social society, for civil society. And in this sense, they are not equipped as an organization to deal with NGOs. The fact is that, for instance, Crespial, which is the UNESCO Center 2 for Latin America and the Caribbean, they don't know how to work with NGOs. They're learning, of course. It's a process, an ongoing process, but it's something new for them. And in this sense, I think ICHCAP has been more, as Albert mentioned, which is very interesting. I think it's more interesting what ICHCAP has done in that sense, and it should be also a sharing experience between the regional center, two regions. But also comes to the money. No, ICHCAP is a very wealthy center for UNESCO, and the rest of the world is just working as they can. No, so it comes to politics, it comes to economics, and then, well, I'm sorry, I forgot to give you the whole scope. This region I just shown you, which is Latin America and the Caribbean, we only have 11 NGOs from 193 and accredited to this date. And this is less than 10%, it's like 6% of the total NGOs. And this is interesting also because we only have 77 elements inscribed with the 584 from the region, which is also very interesting. And just talks about the whole thing about what's going on here. But well, what I wanted to say is that we need to think outside the box in the sense of the NGOs. Normally, it's not I understand, and I really was happy to see that you define what an NGO is for UNESCO at the beginning of your opening of the session. And I think what we need really is to let some other forms of organization participate rather than just the formal NGO, because NGO is it's a conception of Western Europe. It has this idea that the civil society will build this organization, and that organization will have a chair and a board, and they will have these committees, and so it's very structured, it's very nice, but it's Western European. It's not a community-based organization. If you go to the communities, there is no chair, there is no board. It's just people getting their responsibilities for a certain activity. For instance, we have a lot of that in Mexico. It's a lot of celebrations, and so people will join the celebration each year, and it's something you do once in a lifetime, and you have to put money to the celebration, and you have to work. So it's but it's also very respectable to do that in the sense of the community, and that's one kind of organization. We also have the indigenous organizations, which the indigenous have their own uses and way of thinking. This is also very interesting because, for instance, in the legal concept of Mexico, we have on one side the legal status of the Mexican state, which is also linked to the worldwide legal status of the world. But within the legal frame of Mexico, we have the indigenous communities living in a legal special legislation so they can do their things within the community. But then the problem comes when outside from the communities, they take the symbols, the signs, the cultural heritage, and they use it on a commercial background. And so the indigenous communities don't have neither the organizations nor the legal framework nor the background to fight on that level, because they're living on a different alternative reality on a legal status. I mean, please, I want to be very clear on this. It's just on the legal status. So this is a gap that we haven't bridged yet, and I'm talking just on the legal issue. And so it's a real challenge. I think to fight this imbalance, we need to go beyond the NGOs, and we need to think more, what is the benefit of really involving communities and how can they participate and get something from this? Because not everybody needs to participate, but then again, how can we listen to them? And finally, just to leave my presentation, which is more a talk, I wanted to share you, I was in a class 3 years ago in a master's, and one of the students, a very proactive student, he was in the class talking, and he was saying, well, you know, I don't understand why people from underdeveloped countries and female peers from the class won't express themselves. I really don't understand why they don't come forward and talk. And so one of my fellow female peers said to him, just shut up. Just shut up and let someone else talk. Let someone else participate. And I think it's not only about us. It's about Western developed countries just giving a step back and letting people go forward. That's my takeaway. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Matti.
Thank you, Jorge. That was very important, and yes, something for all of us to think about. Your last words. It's very, very important. I try to do a little bit like that. Try to shut up and give. Even though we have some requests to speak, I would now ask if there are any underrepresented areas like Africa, Arab states, who would like to give their input to this discussion even before the other ones. Hannah, I know you're there. Sorry, I just we only have 10 minutes, so I will just Matti Hakamäki, please.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, very good.
Thank you. I am from the International Council for Traditional Music, and like the last presenter, I want to make a disclaimer here that now I am not speaking in this cup, but I want to speak as an African and as a Nigerian. Yes, when I saw the map that was presented and I saw sub-Saharan Africa, my heart just fell, you know, because it looked as if the place does not even exist. And but as people kept making their presentation, especially the three presenters, I started, and then reading what Hannah was writing, it became clear to me that there are fundamental issues that need to be taken care of. And first of all, because I know that here in Nigeria, I hear a lot of people say, oh, I have this NGO, I have this NGO. And so most probably they don't even have that knowledge of taking it to the next step of accreditation. So I was just wondering how this group which really I'm so happy that I came in, how this group can help so that people can be, especially those from sub-Saharan Africa and then from the Arab world, as I see too, how they can be given some kind of help in terms of knowledge of what they are supposed to do to get their NGOs accredited, because this is the only way that then they will be able to come into the light. And I also liked what the Mauritius group said in terms of accreditation and knowledge. I agree also with Janet. In fact, the same thing happens in Nigeria. For you to be able to fly from one state to the other, you must go to the capital, okay, or to the capital, administrative capital city, which is Abuja, or the commercial capital city, which is Lagos, and then fly from there to that place. Because going by roads, most of the roads are very dangerous in terms that they are bad. So it becomes also, communication becomes a problem. And I noticed also that a lot of African nations did not come into this because it is online. And I know how much I had to take to be able to be online throughout this period of the meeting. So whilst we are going forward and using technology and all of this, we may have to also begin to think about how to bring up, I don't like using the word help, but how to bring up the other groups so that they can fall also in the same track. I don't want to take our time, but I like what is going on here and I like the discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. If I have a request from Mohamed, vous voulez parler en français? If this is the case, Lauria, could you please help with the... yeah, thank you. Mohamed, please. Your mic.
Le micro, Mohamed. Je pense que il faut allumer le micro, Mohamed. Il faut allumer le micro.
Oui. Donc je salue tout le monde. Je vous remercie de m'avoir invité pour cette occasion, pour cette réunion importante pour les membres des ONG accrédités par l'UNESCO. Je vais être très rapide et un peu exposer la situation des pays africains et arabes sur lesquels mon pays intervient. J'ai oublié de me présenter. Je suis de la Mauritanie. Je suis facilitateur de la convention et membre d'une ONG accréditée par l'UNESCO dans le domaine du patrimoine culturel et matériel en Mauritanie. Donc, la difficulté chez nous, c'est que, en premier lieu, il y a un manque de conscience au niveau des communautés de façon générale de l'importance de ce qu'ils détiennent comme PCI. Donc, il y a un effort à fournir au niveau des ONG en vue de connaître la Convention de façon explicite pour pouvoir aider les communautés à émerger elles-mêmes et à présenter les différents éléments dont elles sont détenteurs. Ça, c'est un problème, je sais, qui est général à tous les pays, car les communautés détentrices des PCI sont en général des communautés qui ont une oralité, des connaissances beaucoup plus orales, beaucoup plus transmises par voie familiale ou par voie directe que par voie d'éducation ou d'enseignement dans les systèmes scolaires. C'est pourquoi, à cet effet, oui, je vous écoute. Je dois m'arrêter pour permettre la traduction.
We can't hear you, Laurie, I think. At least I can. Your mic seems to be on, but we can't hear you. So.
Je dois continuer ou je m'arrête?
Je pense continuer. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, now.
Okay. So sorry, I don't know what happened. But Mr. Mohamed Lemine presented himself. He represents the Mauritanian Association for Folklore, and he said he was very happy to be invited, and he has begun to express some of the difficulties that they are having in his country. And one of them is the lack of knowledge of the NGOs. He indicated that most of the communities that he deals with function on an oral basis and are not very familiar with, using written documentation. So this is a problem in itself. Okay, Monsieur Mohamed, allez-y.
Donc, pour être bref, j'insiste sur l'importance, en particulier dans les pays d'Afrique et du moins les pays arabes, puissent être présents. J'ai fourni beaucoup d'efforts dans ce sens en demandant à chaque fois aux ONG de se faire accréditer, et je travaille actuellement dans un programme qui, au niveau de la Mauritanie, sensibilise les ONG en distribuant des outils de communication qui simplifient les termes de la Convention et qui utilisent des spots, des dépliants, des fiches pour sensibiliser les communautés. Nous n'avons pas dans nos pays le même niveau que dans d'autres pays où la communication est très riche. Ici, dans nos pays, la communication nécessite beaucoup d'abnégation, beaucoup de travail au niveau des ONG. Si vous pouvez traduire.
Yes. Okay. So he thinks it would be very useful if it was possible to prepare a document or a toolkit which could explain the convention in simple terms so that it's accessible for communities.
Très bien. Donc, je continue donc dans ce sens à mobiliser au niveau des pays que j'ai visités, notamment les pays africains, Djibouti, Comores, Tunisie, Maroc, Algérie, sur lesquels j'ai travaillé, et on continue à sensibiliser. Et je sais que le résultat est très important quand les communautés sont informées de l'importance de ce qu'elles détiennent. Ce que nous avons comme retard, c'est au niveau de la sensibilisation des communautés, essentiellement. Et je voudrais bien qu'il y ait au niveau du forum une assistance aux pays africains en général qui sont très sous-représentés, comme on le voit, au niveau du comité, au niveau de la gestion du forum. Vous pouvez traduire?
Yes. So he feels that it's very important to raise awareness in different African countries. He says he has traveled in different countries, and this is a problem because the communities are not very aware of the existence even of the convention and of the possibility of creating and participating in as NGOs in the forum. And he suggests that there should be maybe special attention given to Africa so that because the continent is severely underrepresented at the moment. Okay, Mohamed.
Oui, ok. Donc, je vous remercie pour votre assistance pour la traduction et j'essaie de parfaire mon anglais pour que prochainement je puisse m'exprimer en anglais. Je vous remercie et à bientôt. Je reste à l'écoute pour vos observations éventuelles et pour tout ce que vous faites. Je suis le débat. Je trouve, en plus que je ne puisse parler en anglais. Merci.
Okay. Yes, he's sorry not to be able to speak in English. He said he's going to be taking courses to improve his English in the near future, and but has appreciated participating and looks forward to participating more actively in our forum. Okay. Clearly.
Okay.
I know time is tight. I know time is tight, but can I say one word?
Sorry. Merci beaucoup, Mohamed. Merci beaucoup, Laurier. Thank you very much. Just who was, I couldn't see who would want to. Hannah has a word. We have only a few minutes to go. Hannah, and then I couldn't see Robert. If we keep it in half a minute, Hannah and sorry, I couldn't get one. Was it? Maybe Laurier?
No, I wanted to say just one word, but not worry.
I can't see who you are now.
Oh, it's
Berthe. Okay, now. Okay. Hannah and Berthe. Yeah, I was thinking of you. Just a half a minute, please. Hannah.
Thank you, Matti. Well, I feel quite discriminated, I must say, because I also represent very underrepresented region, and please do not put us all into the same box. We experience completely different situation in Central and Eastern Europe. And as you have yourself shown in the statistics, it's really something I would say very visible. So I would just want to say, as I have only 1 minute, that I fully agree with what has been said by Janet. We experience very, very similar situation. I was really listening with pleasure to our Mauritius colleagues also about their remarks. And my idea would be for this group that before we will please UNESCO with giving solutions how to make the unbalance less visible or less shocking, let's focus on what Jorge has said. What is NGO? Maybe we should think about giving a proper report about all these problems that the legal definition of NGOs faces when applied to other regions of the world. And maybe we should in the future think about creating ICH Forum of CGIs, communities, groups, and individuals, covering and making it less legal and more into the community character of diversity of organizations. So I think unless we solve the issue of what is NGO and how we can live with this concept in other regions, we cannot solve the issue of the unbalanced geographical representation. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. I'm very sorry for the discrimination here. We have too many speakers, too little time. We will continue every month, hopefully, with these discussions. So we will really hear everybody's voice. That will be our aim. Next, Kaloyan was one of the, oh, Berthe, sorry. Berthe and then Kaloyan, please.
I also asked for the floor about 10 minutes ago. I'll be brief.
Yes, I have actually the ones before that also in the chat. And so please, Robert, wait. So Berthe and Kaloyan, I have promised.
Thanks for giving me the floor.
Very briefly, please.
Yeah. What we're facing as a challenge with indigenous community is a question of mutual trust. The ICH is their property, and oftentimes government structure may not have the skills and the language to approach them. But as NGO, when you step in also, they need to take the time, and that's what we're experiencing here in Mali. Thanks. I will keep it low and brief. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Berthe. And Kaloyan, and Gulnara and Robert. Just very briefly, please. Kaloyan first.
Sorry, I already sent all information of the Eastern Europe when the HANA was on the floor, and I cannot, because of limit of time, I will not give a speech. Thank you very much for all.
Thank you. We will. This is very what Hannah was mentioning, that we have regions who are very underrepresented in the regions who are more represented. This is very. We have to look at the big picture here. Then Gulnara, please. Gulnara, very briefly, please.
I didn't ask the floor, so.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
This is what I got from the, okay.
I'm here. Janet, thank you very much for your very multi-sided presentation, which covered all the important problems, issues, and not just covered, but touched pretty deeply some serious points. Thank you.
Thank you, Gulnara. And then Robert, please.
Yeah, so I'll be quick. Early in the week on Monday, the Tim Curtis said there were funds available through the Intangible Cultural Heritage Fund for capacity building for precisely what we're doing, and that could go to NGOs. So I'd like to just suggest, and I've also discussed this briefly with Gustavo, that we submit a proposal and the other point I want to make about this is that the funds are probably underspent because of the pandemic. So I think that, and the fund consists of hundreds of thousands of euros. So I would like to suggest that we do a proposal that would include the dimensions that we've discussed here, creating a video, online mentoring to workshops, or whether it's peer mentoring. I think I said creating, and after the pandemic, some in-person activities. And this would also provide the opportunity for administrative and operational funds for ICH NGOs. So I think we have a window of opportunity. Obviously, we can't talk about this in detail. Perhaps at the next meeting, it's something we can also discuss at the steering committee meeting. But if there's interest in doing this, I think that, again, there's a window of opportunity. I think it's something we should do in the coming months.
Thank you, Robert. Lauria, you are the last one. I have maybe I have more. So please put on chat if you have if you want to very briefly somebody else. But Lauria.
No, I just very briefly in 30 seconds. I think Robert has made a very good suggestion, and I would like to maybe invite the working group to think about developing a very efficient and simple toolkit that could be translated also in different languages that could be addressed to the new NGOs, but also maybe to NGOs that are accredited but not participating. So I think this could be just the first step that could be very useful, which would give them the incentive to give them information so that they are able to participate more actively. And I know there's lots of other things we could do, but we could maybe start with that small project, but could have a fairly major impact.
Thank you very much, Lauria. That is very, very good ideas. We will continue with this working group. Please put on your in chat. We have had many people wanting to participate. Your email address, your name, and the name of your your NGO. So we will continue. I'm very happy that we had a very important, very nice conversation here, and thank you for all of your inputs here. Please send me email if there is something, questions. We didn't have the time to take everything up that was planned, but yeah, actually it's better this way, that we have more. Yeah,
Matti, please mention the next date.
We will collect the emails, and then we will send the next information about the next meeting in the email. So this is how we will proceed. I hope this is okay for everyone. Okay, so thank you. I'm very glad for this week, and